to be talking about this ridiculous NBA slate where I think that more than any NBA slate of the season, maybe it wasn't more than 4 games. I guess the 4 gamers you can leave money on the table. I feel like there's a few spots where I don't mind leaving a little money on the table. I think some of this value is suspect, and I think that we should talk about the value and then the spend ups if that works for you, because I think
that's you hit the nail right on that. I mean, this is the question, right? Like, which of the value is suspect, and which spend ups do you want to play? That's really the slam. I mean, there's a lot of guys. You know what I mean? A lot of guys with really, really big point per dollar projections, and you don't have to play them. You know what I mean? Like you can play the less owned ones and still have good plays.
Right. I think you're totally right, and I think that's really a lot of what it shakes down to. There's also a lot of crossovers in positions that get a little tricky, especially at center, because a lot of these spend ups at center, the cheap guys at center are going to keep some of the spend ups at center a little bit lower owned, which in the case of like a guy like Jokic or even Brook Lopez, I think is probably a mistake, and I think you probably want to get overweight on the other centers. But in terms of the value, the guys who I've gotten the most of, just overall, this is not all value, but whatever. Middleton, Portis, Eubanks, and Little are sort of like I'm playing those guys in most of my lineups. I'm still counting on Watford being out. If Watford is in, I can make the pivot later, but I'm going to have at least 4 guys in the later games anyway, so it should be no problem. And even still, I like Eubanks just fine with Watford, but without Watford, I'm definitely playing Eubanks. I like the Jackson play. He's been basically flirting with getting there, like with Miles Turner playing. I know there's been some blowouts in there. That's partly why, but I will take the shot on Isaiah Jackson, but I don't think it's really a shot. I think Jackson, Little, Eubanks are my favorite of the value plays. If you wanted to play Paul Reed, Jalen Smith, and Javon Carter, I'm not going to hold it against you. I just think I'm going to build a little differently. I also think the projection is too high on TJ McConnell. Oh, it's come down a little bit. I feel like the projection is too high on Nas Little. On Jalen Smith. And TJ McConnell, but I think Jalen Smith is a reasonable pivot off of Jackson, and you can use him as a forward, which is what makes him appealing. So I'm going to be overweight on those guys, the guys I mentioned, the Jalen Smith, the Paul Reed, Javon Carter, TJ McConnell, Matherin, Nwora. When you have that much crossover in Indiana, all in one team, Neesmith, all of those guys, I'm more content to sort of leave them out. Even when McConnell, yeah, he's been getting there in terms of production, but like, where is his ceiling when he's only playing his last 4 games without Halliburton, he played 20, 29, 26, 23, and 22 minutes. I don't know how badly I want to be playing a guy at 5,100 who's not playing that many minutes. Now, he can get 40 in that time, it's possible, but Nembhard seems to have a higher minute floor, and I don't even feel that excited about him. So I'm still sided with, I think I want to play Sharp, add Sharp and Isaiah Jackson to my Middleton, Portis, Eubanks. And then you have the money to spend elsewhere at guard, which is leading me to a lot of Harden, De'Aaron Fox, CJ McCollum, Anthony Edwards. I also think overlooked on this slate might be DeAnthony Melton and Tyrese Maxey, who I think are very viable. But it's really hard to build today. It's hard to build and feel, it's weird because you should feel good about your lineups, but the value, I don't know. I just don't feel as sold on all of it. I do think that Middleton, people are worried about Middleton and blowout and all this stuff. I don't know about the blowout yet. I mean, they're missing their 2 best players. But I still think Middleton could get, if they do blow him out, I think Middleton will have something to do with it. And Bobby Portis at 5,600 just feels too reasonable and will get some of the, not blowout run, but like some of the run if there is like I don't know, they pull him away by 15 or 20 or something like that. He'll probably stay on the court more than most of these guys will. But how are you building? The other idea I was going to have was to go through and see the ownership and then just sort of like talk about, who I would be above and below on. But how are you building today? Because I know you're doing, you're scripting for part of it, and then I know that you'll build your single big buy-ins. What are you looking at?
Yeah. So first of all, for those of you that are playing Chris Middleton, you just gotta have to hope that I don't play him. Okay, because if I play Chris Middleton, which I'm going to, it will literally be the first time he's ever made me a cent. Whether he was been with everybody there, if nobody there, whether he was 2% owned or 74% owned, the guy literally has never made me a red cent. So I currently have 82% of him. And I'm just really hoping that the 18% that I don't have are good lineups. It looks because you just kind of have to play him. But I'm, and listen, we shouldn't be biased of our own stuff, but just fair warning. I'm probably going to end up cursing all of your lineups by playing Chris Middleton. The other guy that I'll probably
add another thing that makes Middleton a little more comfortable. He had some bad blood because he was drafted by Detroit. Didn't feel like he got his opportunity there. There was a lot of stuff like that going on. So I was going to play him even if just Holiday was out earlier. But I don't think you have to play him. There's just plenty of other plays. I am probably going to play in my bigger buy-ins than my smaller by and large field. I think I'm probably going to be lower than the field on him.
It would also, I think, be the first time I ever made money on Javon Carter. So I'm just saying that the two best Milwaukee values are guys I've literally never made a cent on. But in fair warning, I'm going to play them. I really do like of all the centers, and there are, there are quite a bit of centers. I have the two of them that pretty much the same, Eubanks and Jackson. That's just that.
Even with Watford out, huh?
What's that?
I just feel like with Watford out, I feel like the thing about fading Eubanks is that's a likely 10x. I don't even think it's like I think it's actually as likely a 10x or an 8+x as.
It is like a 15-point spread now, isn't it, or something?
What does it matter? They have 10 guys and he's their backup center anyway.
Yeah, I guess.
They don't have another big to match up with Joe Val. You could argue with foul trouble. You could use Jabari Walker, I guess, as a pivot, but they're the same price.
Right.
So I'm not going to do that. But I hear you, but I don't. I also, for what it's worth, I like the Blazers to cover and lose if possible. But yeah, it's really tricky. And then if you're not going to play the Middleton play and yeah, I would say that if you're not playing Middleton, you probably should have Portis or Lopez in that lineup.
All right, let's talk about some nonsense. How about what do you think of Paul Reed?
I like him less. First of all, I'd like to see who's starting for Philly, which the benefit is that game doesn't start till 6:30. 9:30. So most likely they'll do what they've done, which is just play Tucker at the 5 because that's what they've done. But they haven't always been against Jokic. So maybe adding some size out there. I also think that if you're going to get into that kind of creativity, what I was going to do earlier was play Montrezl Harrell as a super impossible play to get there. He's active. He played with Denver. So you have a little bit of familiarity, at least of playing against Jokic in practice. Maybe that they give him a little nod because of it. But I don't know who's going to start that game. And I don't think I'd feel comfortable playing with a very strong center position, Paul Reed, when he's not starting. However, he is a guy who can be very good point per minute. So it's a little bit tricky. But I would say that's Paul Reed and Carter are the first two values that I'm sort of not Xing out, but they're not in my big buy-ins.
You just also remember that we do not have, I don't believe, Pacers starting lineups yet.
We don't have anybody starting lineups. Yeah. The Pacers are being an important one, but the Pacers are the one that you tend to want to be like I always point this out about them. First of all, they've played the last games with it. It's kind of strange how people are, if people do flock to them like a little bit too much, because they haven't. It's not like we've seen these guys smashing at this because they play 11 guys usually.
Right. Yep.
And it's like it's the minutes I see projected every time. You look, Benedict Mathurin is always projected for 30-ish minutes, 30+ minutes. Benedict Mathurin has played 30 minutes like one time. You know what I mean? In the last whatever since I guess he He had a couple, but I don't know. And that was without Halliburton too. Like without Halliburton, it's not like his minutes have gone up or his production. It's not like he's been getting there. Jordan Nwora might be the more interesting play because higher range of outcomes, but that guy's got a freaking ceiling. He's another one that could 10x that 4,900 price tag. So I don't feel like there's anybody you have to play even with all this value. I'm just siding with the ones I like the best, which are Eubanks and Jackson, along with Little. And Little, that's dependent because Watford's out and Portland only has 10 guys in a fast-paced game, and they're at home. So they can at least they'll at least try to put their, I don't want to say they won't put their best foot forward, but they'll go out there and they'll try to play. And as Brandon Cruz is asking here, which is the next thing I wanted to talk about was the spend ups. There is no way I'm going to say that any spend up is a bad play today. They all make enough sense. The ownership is all over the place on them. I think Kawhi is completely reasonable. Am I playing him? No. But he's totally reasonable. And, Kawhi, Sabonis are going to be the two lower owned guys there. I prefer Harden. I prefer Jokic over Luka. Close though. And I'm unless somebody's out, unless we get Jalen Brunson out, I'm probably not going to end up with Randall and Ingram. And I like both those guys a little bit. Devin Booker is going to be low owned. He's one you could take a shot on. I actually like Booker just as much as I like Paul George. I'm sorry, Kawhi Leonard. The other one that popped out for me is I'm kind of back into the Anthony Edwards idea. The problem is I think there's a perception that's going to actually get him higher owned than maybe some people think. So I do like Edwards as another guy to spend up on, but Edwards and Harden are sort of two of my favorites, along with some of the lower guys like McCollum. I still really like on both sides Sharp. I think Sharp has a massive ceiling, and I don't think we're going to see the same ownership that we were going to see at the beginning of the day on him. And also, we can always make swaps later in the day if you want, if you do or don't like your lineup. But Sharp's projection to me actually feels rather low. So that's sort of what I'm doing, is using that value with the not quite all the way spend ups. And if I do, it's probably going to be Jokic instead of Luka. Although there's no problem with Luka. I just like Jokic, and I think he's going to end up being a little bit lower owned. That's basically it. Kleber out means nothing to me whatsoever. Anything on Highland, I think that this is the kind of slate where if you play Bones Highland, there's got to be something going on with you. I don't know how I'm going to play 5K. It's just so beyond chasey. It's like ridiculous. So I don't care whether Bone Highland puts up 50 fantasy points tonight. I would straight up say it's a bad play. Not even like an okay play. Nothing like that. I think he's just a flat out bad play. I'm not interested in him.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things. First of all, still don't have news on Jalen Brunson yet, which is a very, very big deal. If he's in fact out, you have like 40 minutes from Emmanuel Quickly. You have Randall becomes a better play and all that stuff. So we gotta wait. We gotta think about that. As far as the spend ups go, I like Jokic and Luka because you can get to them. You know what I mean? Like, and I like kind of like Luka revenge, like revenge against the world. You know what I mean? Like from getting suspended. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's that. I think that's if you're gonna play these Indiana guys, I mean, may as well take somebody from Dallas. You know what I mean? Like, why not?
Yeah, and that leads into Brendan's question, which is kind of interesting. He said thoughts on Jokic Luka build. I just think that's chalk. I really do think Luka's going to be low. What's his name? Luka will be. Jokic will be lower owned than Luka. But I think that you're talking about a chalk build. Not chalk. You're going to have a lot of lineups that are going to be building with the double spend ups. It's just so easy to do. So I think that lineup might end up doing well, and I think it's certainly viable. I would try to get creative with one of my value plays if I was going to play those two guys together. Sheets in tournaments, do you agree with that or not?
Yeah, I mean I'm getting like some Luka and some Jokic, but not that much. You know what I mean? Like it's not one of those slates where you're jamming and all that stuff. I'm getting some weird like exposure to Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable.
I mean,
They're in completely must-win mode, even with this point spread. It's flat out must-win mode. They're going to play minutes. Brandon Ingram's put up 59, 65, and 48 in his last 3 games. He is, and by the way, in 2 of those games, they blew out. They won, but so easily he didn't even have a chance to fully get there. But Brandon Ingram has a monstrous ceiling, and is one of the reasons why I decided not to have as much CJ McCollum as I originally planned to. Yeah. So, and for what it's worth, by the way, we talk about CJ McCollum, was being a play, and it seems like a revengey thing. Highest usage of the month against Portland. Last time he played Portland in Portland.
Oh, is that right?
For production, you can only ask for usage. You know what I mean? And it's still behind. And that game was, Brandon Ingram still had a monster usage too. Both these guys are definitely in play. Ingram, I guess, versus Anthony Edwards is an interesting conversation. But I think that they're very, very close. The difference, I'm using Edwards at guard because there's so much forward value. So
yeah.
And Dallas is in an absolutely must-win mode. Like, you could actually talk me into, if you really wanted. The problem is, if I really thought Indiana was going to fight for this game, I would really be heavier on Luka. I also would be heavier on Kyrie. But I don't know that Indiana's. They're not going to. Maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, Charlotte just beat this team in back-to-backs. I don't know. I'm just struggling with those builds. So I'm playing the guys in the more middling range, partially because I think they're going to be lower owned. I think everyone's going to flock to the spend-ups, even though they're not showing up as the most amazing plays. I really do. But I just think they'll do it more so with Luka than they will with Jokic. Jackson or Reed for single entry? I think the answer is clearly Jackson. But I'm hoping that you're not playing Jackson over Eubanks in single entry, because Eubanks also gives you flexibility. I don't think Jackson is I don't care if he scores more fantasy points tonight. You have a team with 10 guys, no other bigs, against a team that plays Joe Val at least 28 minutes. And not to mention, Eubanks is a really good fantasy point per minute guy. So is Jackson. But Jackson has plenty of other bodies to compete with against a team that doesn't play any bigs. So I have both those two as priorities, but I do have a much higher interest in Eubanks right now. Yeah. So he does have Eubanks already. Yeah. That's what I would do, all gems, personally. I would play those two together if I had to pick the 2 centers. And that's assuming that Jackson starts. We don't have the Indiana starting lineup yet. So we don't know, for sure what we're doing with that. But it's a weird slate.
Yep.
Maybe the Bones Highland. Maybe it's so weird that Bones Highland actually is a good. The only reason I say he's not a good play is he's probably one of the you need a miracle to happen and him to go off. And I know he put up 30. Even if he puts up 30, do we even want 30 from guys at 5K? And that would be even feels like a reach. I know he had 2 back-to-back games where he was hot, but this guy was a DNP CD every game before that, and they lost those games. And that's partly why they brought him in, because they were struggling. So. I don't know, man. It's a tough slate. It's definitely no picnic.
No.
I do think if Paul Reed ends up unowned, maybe you do take a chance there, I guess. Because Indiana has other bigs. I prefer Jackson, but I do think for larger field tournaments, maybe Paul Reed is one of the answers. He certainly will be in some of my other ones. As of right now, I like Nas Little, assuming that Watford's out. The minutes have got to go somewhere. These guys have got to play minutes. So Portland down to 10 bodies, one of them being Ryan Arcidiacono. It's hard to not see the other starters getting their full share of minutes. And Little is actually a pretty good producer. He put up 36 the last time in this spot. He's 3,800. The 10X has always worked for me. So I'm there. Portis or Lopez? It's Portis for me, but I think Lopez is an awesome tournament play at low ownership. I don't think Lopez is going to have that much ownership. What's his ownership projected? Yeah, he's projected right around. This keeps happening with Lopez too. I want to point out, when Giannis was out before and we were all playing these other guys, Lopez was just putting up 50s, 45s.
Yeah.
An interesting play, but it's just the center spot is just so loaded today. Even guys like DeAndre Ayton, I love tonight, and I just am not going to end up playing any of them. Just too many guys. All right. What else, guys? Keep firing in the questions. I'm going to probably get out of here in 10 minutes. I got to finish building what resembles a lineup of what I've got here. I think I still actually have Embiid in some lineups.
Yeah.
I've been trying to fix things. So I'm not Xing out. I don't, MJ, you know me, like if I'm playing multiple lineups, I'm not going to just like X button some people, but I am going to be, I'll be below the field on McConnell, Matherin, and Neesmith for what it's worth. Best point guard play on DK, just any of them? Look, let's see who I have as my point guards. Well, there's a lot of good ones. Harden is my number one. Sharp I have at point or shooting guard. Chris Paul is my number 2 or 3, and then Luka would be after him. That's where I'm at. Oh, there we go. I just answered that question. My best favorite Phoenix player from Utah is Chris Paul tonight, but I don't mind Devin Booker because the builds are going to lead you somewhere other than just point guard or center spend ups. You're gonna see some. You're gonna if you're not playing Harden, for example, you're gonna find some other builds where you want to spend that money. And Booker, I guess, is I think Booker and Kawhi are basically like equally good plays in the same price range. And two guys I'm not really playing much of. To be honest. But this could be a good book. I think Booker is actually, both those guys are very reasonable. Anyway, do we ever get word on this? Is a very small thing seemingly, but Michael Porter Jr. was questionable. I wonder if he's officially out. Still questionable. Just a bump for Jokic and Murray if he is, but neither one, are like in my core group. They're just guys I'm mixing in. All right. Let's see. And for what it's worth, I am going to have some McConnell, and I'm just going to be below the field on these guys. It's just going to be I think it's going to be probably more in a little bit of a game stack where I play Luka on one side, McConnell, Jackson, and maybe Noor on the other side. But mostly I'd still like to wait if I could, because I still like the Portland stuff. I think the spend ups in the for Minnesota, I think that Anthony Edwards, and by the way, Anthony Edwards is still questionable, but if you have multiple guys late, you can always swap around. And we just are used to hearing news late, so it's always possible that we do hear that news late. Even the Bulls guys at low ownership, we're taking a shot on, because they're all like, you need to spend your money somewhere. And I don't think these others plays are like Luka has Kyrie there. We've seen him not really hit his crazy ceilings as often. Jokic might have everybody there, and there's some blowout risk. Harden I love. Sabonis is fine, but I don't think is is more often right around that 50 mark. Kawhi's fine. Booker's fine. Brandon Ingram I like. Randall is fine, but none of these guys I feel like I need to play. So maybe taking some of the lower owned spend ups are a little bit interesting, and maybe that does force you into a Kawhi or a Devin Booker, because those are going to be the lower owned real spend all the way ups, and that's what I tried to do on Friday. Booker kind of struggled a little bit, and would have been nice, man. Another 15 or 20. If we get that 45 real life point game from Booker, I would have won the 100K that night. So that's too bad. Best value at the forward position. Okay. I'm guessing DraftKings. So the best value is probably Little by a pretty hefty ways, assuming that he starts. But you never know what Portland's going to do. They're kind of a little bit in tank mode, but I do think they'll try to play. The guys who play will play hard, and they only have 10 guys. I wonder if you could parlay Portland to cover and New Orleans to win. I hate stuff like that, but that would be interesting tonight.
But you can make that work. I forgot how you do it. You can make it work.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Well, it's nice. The one nice thing I'll say is that at least all the news happened before. Well, a bunch of the news happened before we got on air, so we were at least able to talk through some of the plays that we like, rather than it all having to be after lock. But I will be in Discord in the premium all night and answering anything I can for anybody once we hear who's officially in and out, because we saw already there's been four of the guys who have been ruled out today weren't even questionable to start the day. So, okay, no problem to Fila. But you know, you look at these ownerships, it's pretty wild. It's sort of starting to spread out a little bit. I'm still surprised that Javon Carter is getting as much owner. Like, even if he scores 26 fantasy points, that's not like gonna kill you if you don't have him, and it's not necessarily gonna save you if you do have him. And yeah, he can go higher than that, but we've also seen him really struggle in some of these games like this. The only thing is they don't really have like another true ball handler. I guess you call Connaughton. They're a funny team, Milwaukee, because when just like Connaughton plays when just one guy's out, but then you announce a few guys out and Connaughton starts. Then he doesn't start at all. Like, it's really weird. But why is Javon Carter that much better of a play than Pat Connaughton? I don't see a huge gap. I know it's an $800 price difference, but so what? Yeah, Milwaukee outside of Middleton and Lopez, and Portis, not even Lopez, like, they're just not all good role players who don't have any usage. Yeah. Anyway, all right, Sheets, do you have anything else? I might get out of here pretty soon, just so I can.
No, I'm waiting on Brunson.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Did he play the last time? I don't think he did. No, he didn't. He didn't play the back-to-back, but I think he should be good to go tonight, you think, right? Because he only missed.
We'll see.
He only missed the back-to-back in the third and fourth nights. He played the other 3 games around it. Am I missing a game here? No, the last one they played was the 23rd. Wow, they've had a few days. This is their break they had. I think they gave him an extra day off. I'm pretty sure Brunson's going to play tonight. But they are playing Houston, so if there was a time to give him a rest, it's usually when you're at home against Houston. Anyway, this slate has got my head all screwed up. You're going to see an even more bigger version of this on Wednesday. The only difference is I'm not going to spread out my buy-ins on Wednesday. I'm going to harness in on the big one to try and win the million. And hopefully I won't be as flummoxed as I am today, because it's kind of a wild slate. All right, Sheets, I'm going to end this one unless you got.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Good luck, everybody. Good luck, Sheets, and hopefully somebody can take something down. I'll be in the premium Discord all night.